This is the B&O Sports Show with your hosts, Tanner Ballard and Garrett Otto.
Welcome back to the B&O Sports Show. We're here in our second week of the podcast. We loved the first week so much, we had to come back for a second, Tanner.
That we did.
I think what we first have to start off with is undoubtedly the biggest news of the week. Everyone should know this, coming out of the biggest sport in America, the Portland Timbers winning their first MLS Cup. Congrats to the Portland Timbers. We got to give them a shout out. I don't know how many people knew about that in the midst of all the NFL action going on this week. You got the college football playoff. That's what we're going to be talking about, but we figured we had to, mention those Portland Timbers. They put up a valiant effort, so.
Oh, they did. And congratulations to them. They were playing the Columbus Crew on this past Sunday. It was a Sunday afternoon. It was a bit chilly in Columbus. It was everybody was bundled up, and unfortunately for the Columbus fans, they were disappointed. But the Timbers did pull it off. The final score was 2-1, and it was a good game. The goals were crazy. The goals came early. I don't know if you saw this, Garrett, but the first goal of the game came 30 seconds into the game. The Crew passed the ball back to their goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper took a touch. He dribbled the ball a little bit too far away from him, and in comes this Portland player who slide tackles him and hits the ball into the net. It was absolute madness, 30 seconds into the game. So
that's good. You got to be aggressive. Paid off.
Absolutely. It did pay off, yeah. So they went on to win that one by a score of 2-1. So congratulations to the Portland Timbers for winning the MLS Cup. They are the champions of the MLS Major League Soccer this year.
All right, well, now that we got that out of the way, I think should probably be moving on to the info that is going to interest our listeners most. Something like the NFL, the actual major sports in America. Is that okay with you, Tanner?
That's fair.
All right, I think there's no better place to start than 5 days ago, last Thursday, between the Packers and the Lions. We discussed this last week, and I had mentioned that I thought it was going to be an easy victory for the Packers. And when I was out getting some lovely Oberweis ice cream, and I checked in the game, and it was 17-0 in favor of not Green Bay, but the Detroit Lions. I don't know what really went wrong there, but hey, you guys pulled it out at the end. But what happened, Tanner?
We had a slow start to the game. The offense, of course, was struggling to produce. Like you said, it was 17-0. If I remember right, it was even 20-0 at one point. So the offense got off to a slow start. When the offense can't produce, you leave your defense out there for a long time, and eventually the wear gets to the defense. But the offense was resilient. They came back. They fought hard in the second half. And, I got to be honest, I'm a bad fan for doing this, but I went to bed. I live on the East Coast. It was late. It was a school night. I had to get up early in the morning, and so I sauntered off to bed, and I was awoken with good news, Garrett. You texted me. You said, I can't remember exactly what you said, but, you were basically screaming in text and telling me that Aaron Rodgers had done it. And so that was definitely a wake-up call, but it was a good wake-up call. Heck of a game. I mean, what a play from Aaron Rodgers. You can't. How far did he throw that ball?
If I'm not mistaken, yeah, that was a 61-yard pass. He needs that thing down there. But all credit to Richard Rodgers, who is separated from everyone else. That's also a little discredit to the Lions defense for leaving him so wide open, but he really found an open spot, and he kind of just backed up right into that pass. So good for him. Rodgers to Rodgers connection saves the game.
Yeah. And can I note, there was, of course, a bit of controversy, as always, seems like, this season. The face mask, or, faux face mask. I mean, if you gotta look at it in real time. The slow-mo picture is meant to show you in detail what happened. You know, it's more meant for plays that, you know, trying to put this into words, it's more meant for plays to make plays more clearer that aren't penalties, of course, because for some reason in the NFL they don't want to review penalties, at least not very often. And so this one, you know, in real time, you look at it, it did look like a face mask. You know, you have to be honest. Rodgers goes down, and then they get the second chance. But listen, for any of the Lions fans who are complaining about the referees and saying that call changed the game, you can't put some blame on your defense. I mean, you know what they say about defending the Hail Mary? They say, get in front of your man and knock the ball down. And that is the exact opposite of what the Lions defense did in that game. So, I got to credit the Packers. There's maybe, you know, a little bit of bias coming there, but it was a heck of a game. It was a heck of an ending, and just another fairy tale ending for this season. It's been a crazy season as far as last minute game winning scores, you know, go.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to the face mask, I mean, it wasn't a strong face mask, but you could definitely see that it got pulled and that his head turned, and I think as an NFL referee, it's hard not to call that, because you saw like kind of just caught it with his thumb, and then, you know, that neck turns, and pretty simple as that. I'd throw my flag if I was a referee. But yeah, I was really maybe not excessively surprised, but I definitely thought that the Lions might think about putting Calvin Johnson out there just because he's ginormous and has some of the best hands.
He can catch the ball.
Oh
yeah.
You see teams pretty frequently put out tight ends or, you know, their tall wide receivers out in the Hail Mary defense so that they can go up and catch the ball.
Yeah, or just get up and knock it down.
Yeah, exactly. I guess they trusted their defense though, and it didn't pay off. So, man,
right.
I think that really set a good tone going into the week. There were some good games. Jets, winning by 3. Buccaneers, I think we're starting to see Jameis Winston really show why the Buccaneers went after him. He's been solid the past couple weeks, and he got a win over a pretty good Falcons team, which started off hotter than they're looking right now, but definitely also has some talent.
Yep.
So,
yeah, and he made that huge last minute run that he had to save them the first down. I mean, like you said, he's starting to show why he deserves to, you know, be the number 1 draft choice. So huge game for them, huge for the Buccaneers. They're starting to gain some steam, even though that NFC South division they're struggling behind the Carolina Panthers, should we say. Another note, let's move up to the NFC North, shall we? The Seattle Seahawks put a pretty good beating on Minnesota. I know, Garrett, you were happy about that one.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, they're not in the NFC North, it's the NFC West. I know you're very attached to the NFC North. I understand.
Right. Allow me to say that what I was trying to get to is that the Vikings are in the NFC North.
Now it's turning back on me. I'm not paying attention. What are we doing here?
No.
What are we doing?
We're just trying to we're working it out. We're working it out. What I was saying is the Seahawks put a good beating on the Vikings, and that affects the NFC North because the Vikings are now in second with the Packers over them.
Yeah,
so that was big. I was a Seahawks fan for the weekend, and that was a big victory for them.
Now second run, my brain is starting to pick up on it. Yeah, dude. 38-7. Hard to have a better showing than that. Russell Wilson looking very Russell Wilson-esque over the past couple weeks. He hadn't really been there as much during the beginning of the season, but I think that
he's getting it back.
Offensive line is starting to find their groove. Thomas Rawls is picking up nicely where Marshawn Lynch left off. Doug Baldwin has 5 touchdowns over the past 2 weeks. And that defense is really starting to show up again.
Legion of Boom.
Yeah, you think about Adrian Peterson. Teddy Bridgewater has been playing well this year. There's a lot of good offensive pieces for the Vikings, and Seattle shut them down to a net of 125 yards. That's it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Seattle put up 433. So if the yardage is 433 to 125, it's not going to be close very often. But that's real good news for the Packers to see the Vikings go down like that, and then the Vikings on a short week have to go play Arizona in a tough game. Arizona looking like possibly one of the top teams in the NFC themselves.
Yeah, I think they're extremely. I don't know if underrated is the correct word, but I think they're overlooked. I think the Cardinals are a dangerous team, especially come playoff time. Who knows what could happen? I mean, they soundly beat the Rams this past week, but they're putting together a heck of a season, and they're hot coming into the playoffs.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Man, let's see. Other than that, oh boy, the Ravens and the Dolphins. What a terrible, terrible game that was. That's like one of those games where you see it coming up on the schedule, and it like almost hurts you to see that is going to be a game that two commentators have to spend their time on, or two national commentators.
Do they have a pregame show? Is there a pregame show for those?
I don't know what it would be.
Man. It's just, it's unfortunate. It really is.
Hey, remember that guy who threw a lot of pick sixes when he started a few years ago, and then he throws another one? Matt Schaub, oh man, he's in a world of hurt, man.
He is. Both of those teams are in a world of hurt.
He can't throw the ball over the defensive line, and then he can't chase down a big defensive lineman to stop him from converting that pick six. Not good. The Titans and the Jaguars was one of the top games of the week. That was a shootout, if you'll ever call one. Marcus Mariota looked good. If we're going to talk about Jameis Winston, we should probably mention Marcus Mariota as well. So the two rookie quarterbacks really shining. Mariota 20 for 29, 268 yards, 3 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. And also 112 yards, including an 87-yard touchdown run. That's the way to do it. Showing off his legs.
I don't even know. I mean, was he pulling those things off at Oregon? Probably.
Oregon, yeah, man. One of the top offenses. And then Dorial Green-Beckham also coming into form with 5 receptions, 119 yards, and a touchdown. But I think the most impressive stat line from that game, Allen Robinson had 10 catches, 153 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
3 touchdowns from wide receivers is impressive, and then he tacks on 153 yards.
Heck of a game from him.
Blake Bortles, 5 touchdowns, but he's been doing that recently. Blake Bortles, man, I'm telling you, it's kind of weird because you see these young quarterbacks, and not many young quarterbacks really start off really well because it's an incredibly hard league to start off well in, but there's a lot of young quarterbacks coming into their own. Brock Osweiler, Blake Bortles, Derek Carr, Winston, Mariota, maybe Johnny Manziel when he gets his chance. No, I'm just kidding.
Blake Bortles, I really liked him in college, and he was a guy coming into the NFL that I thought, he's got the size, he's got the talent that, if not his first, year or two, he could definitely be a top quarterback in the, in his later years.
Yeah, and as bad as Jacksonville has been, I think they're starting to really get the right pieces there. It's just kind of trying to bring it all together. That'll be exciting to watch. Brock Osweiler picking up another win over the Chargers, who have been struggling this year. Blaine Gabbert, he's making a name for himself. He had a game winner back in overtime against the Chicago Bears, a 71-yard touchdown to Torrey Smith. He's looked good, really. I mean, he's looked really good in the past couple of weeks. Hasn't necessarily picked up all the wins, but definitely doing a lot better than Colin Kaepernick, keeping his team in it.
Oh yeah, yeah. When you compare him to Colin Kaepernick, you'd probably lean towards Gabbert, just with the way that he's been able to play. I mean, the touchdown pass to win the game against the Bears, it was a heave, and it was a heck of a throw. But yeah, I mean, he's for the 49ers, for as much as they've struggled this year, I think he's been, a little bit of a bright spot. And it's unfortunate for Kaepernick that he hasn't had a very good season. It's unfortunate if you're a 49ers fan. Now, if you're a Seahawks fan, you're A-okay with it.
Very okay. Man, even being a Seahawks fan, I felt bad for the 49ers the way their offseason went. They just got the team absolutely picked apart.
Yeah, it crumbled.
Kind of hard to watch as just a football fan.
Yep.
But I think Blaine Gabbert is probably the right guy for them right now. Other than that, let's see. Kansas City. Kansas City's hot right now, getting a win over the Raiders, helped out by Derek Carr's 3 interceptions in that game. And then I think probably the game of the week, no doubt, the Panthers. Picking up another win, staying undefeated over the Saints, gave them a challenge, Tanner.
Oh, they definitely did, and that was a heck of a game. It was back and forth, both offenses going at it, both defenses mediocre. I mean, the Panthers really made some awful. They had some turnovers early on in the game. They had a fumble. They had an interception, and Cam Newton is not used to throwing those interceptions this season, so that was a bit of a surprise. But yeah, I mean, it was a heck of a game, and really a challenge for the Panthers. I would say probably their toughest game of the season, not as far as the Saints and what kind of team they are, but as far as how much they had to compete to be able to win this game. It really tested their abilities, and I mean, in the end, it showed their quality as an undefeated team. They did come out and they played a heck of a game and they won the game, and that's in the end, that's what matters.
And I think that's huge for a team that's in the Super Bowl talk right now. Is these games where they are down late and they have to come back and they have to show themselves in that late game situation. And that's also important for Cam Newton and his MVP candidacy, because he showed it. He came back, as you mentioned. He started off with an interception. They weren't looking good, and then he came back and threw 5 touchdowns, including the game winner with just over a minute left to Jericho Cotchery.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the rest of the Panthers' schedule, they're not really facing, too many tough teams. And as weird it is to really mention it, it looks like they do have a chance to go undefeated the rest of the year. They're already favored by 7 for next week against the Falcons, who have been kind of reeling recently. Then they're going to go ahead and face the Giants, the Falcons again in Atlanta, and then finish out the year in Carolina versus Tampa Bay. And when you look at those last 4 games, you probably say that at least right now, with the way the teams look now, the Buccaneers kind of seems like it's the toughest challenge for them at the very end there.
Yeah, and I mean, if I'm not mistaken, none of those teams are over 500. Now that could change going, as they go along. But yeah, I think as far as those matchups go, Tampa Bay will definitely be their test, even though it might not be that big of a test in the end. From this past week 13 that we're looking at, shall we have an honorable mention for the sad Patriots? Oh man, losing to the Philadelphia Eagles by a score of 35-28. Poor Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, man, rarely do you see him throw 2 interceptions. I don't understand how the Eagles win. Sam Bradford only had 120 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, but 120 yards. And then the leading rusher for the Eagles, Darren Sproles, who is just somehow still in the league. He had 66 yards rushing.
Mm-hmm. Well, he had that punt return for a touchdown. I mean, special teams and turnovers, I think, are definitely what did it for the Eagles.
Yeah, Tom Brady still threw 3 touchdowns, had 312 yards, kind of led a late game, almost just short of a comeback. Are you worried if you're a Patriots fan for the rest of the year, or are you just trying to focus on what you did the first 10 weeks?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't think I'm terribly worried. I mean, you think about the fact that the Patriots didn't have Gronkowski in this last game. He'll be returning. They're kind of like, in Green Bay, where they're having a struggle with their wide receiving lineup, or at least they did in the beginning. The Patriots are also kind of having that problem. But I'm not worried about the Patriots. They, for the past however many years that they've been such a good team, they come into the clutch and they're good in the playoffs. I mean, if you're a Patriots fan, I don't know if you ever have to worry coming late in the season with Tom Brady as your quarterback. So I don't think that I would be terribly worried. I think if they go and they lose next week, then you might start to shake, and wonder a bit. But I don't think I would be worried as a fan as of right now for the Patriots.
Yeah, coming up next week, the Houston Texans. That'll be a Sunday night game. Not the Eagles. Patriots only favored by 3.5. Although the Texans defense has been playing well, you still would look at that matchup and think that it'd be a much wider spread. And then they only face the Titans, Jets, and Dolphins as the other three opponents. So, again, it kind of looks like a team that could win out the rest of the year. I think if they get that win over the Texans, that definitely will kind of increase the confidence and give them the boost they need to finish off those last three opponents.
Head into the playoffs with some momentum.
Yeah, so I mean, the Patriots are always a dangerous team. You really can't ever... I mean, even after 2 straight losses, you notice that there was some talk about it, but it seems like the general consensus is that Bill Belichick and Tom Brady are who they are. They're going to figure it out, and they're going to move on, and they're going to win more games. So
they are who we thought they were.
We let them off the hook. Matt Hasselbeck finally looked in the mirror and realized that he was 40 and went and played like it in a 10 to 45 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Man, the Colts, they've won 3 games. I don't think they have a lot going for them. Andrew Luck, even when he comes back from whatever numerous injuries he's suffering, he didn't look good at the beginning of the year. Your backup quarterback is Matt Hasselbeck. Your third stringer is Charlie Whitehurst, who went 4 for 8. He had 51 yards in that game when Hasselbeck went down with an injury. Charlie Whitehurst, man, I remember long time ago, he was actually up in Seattle, and he would play. I can't remember if he started for us, but I've kind of always followed him around the league and was amazed that he actually stayed in the league as consistently as he has.
What?
So.
Was he with Hasselbeck up in Seattle?
Yeah, I believe so. It was him. There was a stretch of just like 3 or 4 years where it was right after the 2005 Super Bowl loss, and it went between Hasselbeck, Tavares Jackson, who was actually still in Seattle. He kind of came back a few years ago. Tavares Jackson's the backup now.
Really?
But yeah, Hasselbeck, Tavares Jackson, Charlie Whitehurst. Those were our guys for a while, and then we picked it up and went and found Russell Wilson in 2012, which was wonderful. Because we've seen how well he's playing. And then last night, in possibly the boringest game in the history of the NFL, the Cowboys beat the Redskins. Hip, hip, hooray.
Woohoo, Jerry Jones. Sure he was happy about that one. I think that's a wrap-up of Week 13, isn't it?
Matt Castle. Good guy.
Good guy. Matt Castle. All right, so that's Week 13 wrapped up for you. Shall we jump it ahead into Week 14? We've got a matchup in 2 days, the Thursday night matchup. Now, this is going to be a good game, I think. The Minnesota Vikings and the Arizona Cardinals. I think we previously mentioned that the Cardinals will be playing the Vikings. I think the Cardinals are favored in this game, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them go out and win, but, the Vikings have shown why they should be considered as a team that can challenge any team in this league. So I think that'll be a competitive game, but a good one for Arizona. Then we'll jump into Sunday. Now, we don't have a ton of matches that stand out. We do have the Browns and the 49ers going at it. That's exciting. Johnny Manziel I believe he's confirmed that he will be getting the start for the last 4 games of the season.
I love how Blaine Gabbert gets a win against Chicago, but forbid that Johnny Manziel gets the start, and now the Browns are favored at 2-10. The Browns are favored in a game by 1.5. I don't care who it is. I mean, I went on the rant last week, the Browns and how terrible they are. And now they're favored in a game, in my opinion, just because Johnny Manziel's starting that game. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone, the bookies in Vegas just absolutely love anything about Johnny Manziel. So I think
I speaking of the Browns real fast. I gotta shout out Mike Greenberg from ESPN, Mike and Mike in the Morning. I heard something from him that I really liked, and it was basically a clip of him saying that the Browns are the worst run organization in sports. And I was hearing what he had to say, and I don't disagree with him. I mean, the Cleveland Browns have been consistently, I think it's fair to say, the worst team in the league, or if not the worst, one of the worst teams in the league for, several years going on. And you think that, they keep going through owners, they keep going through coaches, they keep getting these high draft picks, and somehow they cannot find their way to the top. I mean, they have to figure out a way to start winning games, to starting to become a good team. I mean, I don't know what it's like to be a Browns fan, to be honest, but.
And it was kind of like they had like a glimmer of hope in Trent Richardson. He like had such a good rookie year.
Right, they did.
And all of a sudden he's gone. I don't even think he's in the league anymore, if I'm not mistaken.
He disappeared.
Poor guy. I feel bad for him. He's one of those guys I feel bad for him.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know.
So, another matchup that's going to be a good matchup for this Sunday, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals. That's a solid AFC matchup. The Bengals took the lead in the AFC this week. So Andy Dalton and the Bengals will look to take down the Steelers. That'll be a good matchup.
Yeah. That's interesting to me because both of those teams are coming off really big blowout wins. The Bengals beat who else other than the Browns, 37-3,
right.
And as we mentioned, the Steelers winning 45-10. So those guys should have a lot of confidence coming in here. And that'll be a good game. I think that's your top. In my opinion, those two offenses I think are probably the most explosive in the NFL. They can really go out, put up points like they did last week. That'll be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that'll be a good one. Down the table here, you've got an NFC matchup in the Packers and the Cowboys. Maybe in past seasons you might have thought that would be a better matchup, but with the way that the Packers have been playing, you never know. So that might be a fun game to watch. Garrett's Seahawks are playing the Ravens. That'll be exciting.
Honestly,
sarcasm.
I don't know if this is like being a bad NFL fan or not, but I really hope we just destroy them. I mean, we put a pretty good beating on the Vikings, but I'm looking for like 40-something-0. I'd be happy with that.
You'd be happy with that?
For sure.
All right.
Sure. I think
enough.
probably one of my favorite matchups of the week is between the Saints and the Buccaneers. We kind of spotted on both of these teams a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
That's a legendary, probably Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew Brees going up against Jameis Winston. He's coming around. It'll be interesting to see how he does. Now, then again, he's facing the worst defense in the NFL, but still, it'll be fun to watch between, I think, the two quarterbacks. So that's my matchup of the week, I think, other than the Vikings versus Cardinals in terms of like games that I really would want to watch and tune into.
Right. Yeah, so then we've got, of course, we mentioned the Sunday night game, the Patriots and the Texans. That could be a good one. The Patriots are favored to win in that matchup. And then the Monday night game, the New York Giants and the Miami Dolphins. Fun. Let's quickly cover any other NFL news that we have. That's Week 14 wrapped up for you, what you have looking ahead to this week and this weekend. The Carolina Panthers have clinched their division. They've clinched this playoff spot. Not surprising, the undefeated team is there. And the NFC South Division is relatively miserable, if that's a term.
Relatively, yes.
Besides Carolina. I mean, 2 500 teams in there. In the Buccaneers and the Falcons, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, the Panthers are in. Is there anything else in the NFL that you had in mind to talk about, Garrett?
I think an interesting story to at least lighten up the mood. Man, poor Mike Zimmer. This just recently came out after suffering just a terrible loss to Seattle. It was the third worst home defeat in Vikings history. It says the coach stopped at McDonald's. Everyone loves a little McDonald's every now and then in their life. All he wanted, he went up, he ordered 2 cheeseburgers, and when he came around and that bag got to him, there was only 1 cheeseburger in the bag.
Oh my goodness.
And he was quoted as saying, "That's the kind of week it's been," he said. That's the kind of week it's been.
Can you imagine just the tone of his voice, just how sad he was?
That's tough. That reminds me, I kind of feel like Mike Zimmer's face when he got the 1 cheeseburger was a little bit was similar to Ronda Rousey when she was standing there and Holly Holm got her hand raised. So,
yeah.
Ronda Rousey, I've never seen someone in sports look more just defeated and down and sad
destroyed
than Ronda Rousey after she was knocked out by Holly Holm. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's his face driving home.
That's a close second is getting 1 cheeseburger and you ordered 2. That's priceless. That is a priceless story.
That is.
Oh.
That's classic.
Oh man, I love that. It's good.
Is that the conclusion? All right, that's it. That's it for the NFL.
Thing I want to note. I guess we should probably lead into this. This is going to be the weekly rant for our second week to be not vague there. This is the weekly rant coming up. Man, my weekly rant, I get it this week, and I'm proud to get it this week.
Take it away.
A couple issues. If we look ahead real quickly between Clemson and North Carolina, there was a call that is it hurts my brain to try and figure out how it was made when North Carolina was called offsides on a kickoff. There was obviously no offsides there. And yes, I understand it's a terrible call. The referees have not been great this year in a lot of sports. But at the same time, it seems like every time I turn on a game or just try and watch one game, there's endless amounts of reviews. There's, 5+ reviews in every single game. And sometimes I really question is it the referees have gotten worse, or is it just that our technology has gotten better and all the video reviews that come out, in the post-game highlights and everyone sees them, is that just getting better and it's easier to point out all the flaws that the referees have made? And part of me, it's just so frustrating. I wish that people would just kind of understand that these referees, they're not going to be perfect. They're going to make a lot of, questionable calls. And as long as it's not majority, to one team where all the bad calls are going to, it's okay. I mean, you got to get over it. Not, it's just going to happen in that game. We spend so much time, and I realize I'm doing it right now, but we spend so much time focusing on these reviews and the referees and everything. Why can't we just get along with the game, appreciate what's happening in this sport and the athleticism that is out on these fields and courts, and really take that, and enjoy that. And also the fact that it's extending these games for so long. Sometimes these NFL instant reviews take, what would you say, 3+ minutes at some of them where they're close calls?
Yeah, and some of them take way too long, and they slow down the momentum of the team.
And now it's shifted into MLB too, and it's ridiculous that if there's ever a close call, that coach comes and kind of just steps on that top step, and he's just gonna hang out there while he gets, the call from upstairs. He's gonna hang out there, chew a few seeds, and then, oh man, if their video review guy says go for it, he's got to go out there, talk to the umpire, and challenge it. But no, if it's too close, he's gonna head right back into that dugout. It's just frustrating to watch. I know that's not as passionate as your rant, but hey, you got it next week. I'm excited for it. So that's my weekly rant. Let's all calm down about these reviews, and all calm down about the referees, and just appreciate the sport that we're watching, where these athletes go out and put everything they have on the line.
Man, yeah, when you talk about baseball is already slow enough, in my opinion. There's no need to make it slower. I totally agree with everything you're saying. I personally, I'm a soccer referee, and though I'm not on the professional level of refereeing, I have that kind of empathy for referees, and I don't know what the deal is, man. Like, there's just been some huge non-calls or calls that were incorrect that are really just coming out, and unfortunately for especially in the NFL, the referees, the NFL seems to not be backing them as much as they have in the past, which isn't it's not a great image. And what that says about the referees is, I guess, that they are really making mistakes, but they're humans, like Garrett said. We have to forgive them, and I mean, if your team is playing well, if your team is better than the other team, the referees really shouldn't be able to impact the game that much. Now, Garrett mentioned in that game, or in that rant rather, the North Carolina Clemson game, so that will nicely segue us into the college football segment of this podcast. We're looking back at week 15 this past week of college football, and it was a heck of a weekend for college football, I'll tell you that. Shall we? Let's jump right into the SEC championship. I don't know if you saw this game, Garrett, but it was a lot tighter than a lot of people would have predicted. Alabama and Florida going out at the Georgia Dome in Atlanta, and Florida's defense was really, really good. They played fantastic. They were shut down. The corners for Florida were playing excellent. Jay Coker, the Alabama quarterback, was struggling to find his receivers because they were so well covered. Derrick Henry didn't have the defense was able to shut him down in terms of, compared to how well he's been playing. At least that's what it looked like on the field. The Florida offense, though, man, they could not produce. I mean, the first points for Florida came from their defense, and then the offense just struggled. They had their quarterback could not do anything, and Alabama ended up pulling that one off. So.
Yeah, one thing I want to mention, and I mentioned this last week, Derrick Henry again. I love his yards. I think he's been very impressive this season. But again, this game he had 44 carries. And if I'm not mistaken, he had 46 last week. And I want to spotlight two things. In terms of his Heisman candidacy, yeah, it's impressive, again, the numbers he's putting up. But he's getting the ball a lot of times. So I think you kind of got to look at that, too, that a lot of running backs would be able to produce with that amount of carries. But secondly, it kind of seems like I might be jumping the gun on this, but NFL teams might be looking at that amount of carries and the amount of work he's getting. And you figure running backs in the NFL don't often produce well past 30 or 31, maybe even 32 years old, just because of all the wear and tear. Well, he's picking up a lot of wear and tear right now in college, and I wonder if that's going to have any impact on the way NFL scouts are looking at him, because you want to be able to get the most bang for your buck, especially in the NFL. You're trying to find the guys that can produce for you best and for the longest. And I think that amount of workload just might make a couple teams think twice about picking him over, the next best guy. That's kind of my 2 cents. But yeah, that game, I think Alabama just I think they showed, what they're about. They they grinded it out. It was closer in that fourth quarter, but even so, it was 22-7 going into the fourth. So I think they played a solid game. They're not my pick for the national championship, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Still, just a good victory for them over, a decent Florida team, and gets them into the playoff. But I think that's what everyone was expecting. Another great game of the night. Stanford USC between the 20 and 7. Stanford not able to sneak their way into the playoff, but 41-22 victory. The big storyline out of that, Christian McCaffrey, he made people think twice. It seemed like Henry was going to be that consensus pick for the Heisman, but McCaffrey really showed up in that game.
Oh yeah, he of course, the big headline from the weekend, which we'll get into this a little bit more later when we talk about the Heisman. We have our little Heisman talk, but he breaks Barry Sanders for the NCAA record for most all-purpose yards in a season, and he had that. I turned the channel because I was flipping between the Stanford game and the North Carolina Clemson game, and I turned the channel just as Stanford pulled off that kind of the end around trick play where their quarterback Hogan went out and McCaffrey threw the touchdown pass. So I mean he's doing it all, you know. That was a great win for Stanford. Heck of a night for McCaffrey. Now, of course, that's overshadowed by the fact that Clemson and North Carolina played a heck of a game. Also, the Michigan State Ohio game was a heck of a game. Garrett mentioned the North Carolina Clemson game in his rant. That game, that was an interesting game because I think a lot of people were going back and forth whether North Carolina would be able to. It was either North Carolina is going to pull off a victory against these guys or Clemson's going to, blow them out or something to that effect. And, for the longest time in that game, it seemed like Clemson would take this lead, and it was, for the most part, it was a 2-score lead, and you would think, well, this is the third quarter, this is fourth quarter, North Carolina, they don't have enough time, they're not coming back, their offense isn't playing well enough. And then all of a sudden North Carolina would sneak back in, and they would be within, 8 points or however many points, and you'd, turn back and be like, oh, here we go, this is a game. And this kept happening throughout the third and fourth quarter. I mean, I swear, at the end of the, towards the end of the fourth quarter, Clemson was up, and I was like, man, this game is over. And then North Carolina comes back, puts the score at 37-45. Then comes the infamous onside kick, and the referees flag a man for being offsides on the kickoff. Garrett, this is a debate that's been up and coming this season for both the NFL and college, but what are your opinions on the referees being able to review penalties under 2 minutes in the fourth and second quarters?
Man, I think reviewing penalties in general is just, I said it before, I think the amount of reviews is ridiculous. And now that, reviewing penalties,
yeah.
I don't think it's needed. Bad calls, again, they're going to happen, but they just happen, and sometimes it affects the game, and sometimes it doesn't. I don't know. I think it'd be frustrating to see them go into the review booth in such a close game and in such an intense game. And while you want to get the call right, kind of takes away from the viewing experience and just the game in itself. In my opinion, if they would have reviewed that call and changed it, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about the game as much. And they would have gotten the call right, but again, I just think it takes away from the game too much for them to implement it.
Right. And you wonder, well, first of all, you have to beg the question, would North Carolina really have been able to go on down the field and scored a touchdown and also had the 2-point conversion to tie the game? Had they been able to do that, had the call, first of all, would they have been able to do that had the call been right? And let's say that, they do review the penalty, the momentum that they had from, getting that onside kick, the momentum would be killed by this penalty review, and, I think it's fair to say that, they might not have been able to do that. So, unfortunate for North Carolina to go down like that. It was a heck of a game. Man, Michigan State, Iowa, that, for the longest time, field goal after field goal. Man,
yeah, that was... That's the type of game you're looking for. I think that was what again, not the super high scoring game like North Carolina and Clemson, but in terms of a football game, that's about as good as you're gonna get. Incredible by Michigan State, Iowa. There had been a lot of doubters the entire year. They showed up. They put up a great effort. They're deserving of, I believe, the 5 seed that they got in the end of the year rankings. And I think they would have been deserving, to make it into the playoff if they won. But it's just what happens. Michigan State was just the better team in the end, and it seems like the better team in the end will always prevail. L.J. Scott, man, he fought for it. It's fascinating to me to see him run like that and stick the ball out over the goal line, because it's just so much. It's this whole season. It's every day of practice. It's the 2-a-days, the 3-a-days, all this practice. And finally, it just pays off in the end. 27 seconds left, and he drives towards the goal line, and Iowa's doing everything they can to stop him, but it just comes down to who's the better team, and he proved it right there. Michigan State deserves to be in the playoff. And it happened like I believe it should. Iowa doing their best. They just weren't there. It'll be great for the Iowa program that they did this. I'm sure it'll help their recruitment. It'll help them as a school as a whole. But Michigan State, they just pulled it off. I mean, you can't really say it other than that. I think the better team won in that game, as close as it was, and as great of a game it was. It's going to work out like it needs to. Michigan State, 16-13, man, they're moving on.
Yeah, and, it was, listen, the last drive, that drive, where, Connor Cook takes the Spartans 82 yards down the field in, I think it was like nine and a half minutes. Just this absolutely legendary drive. That was a fantastic. That was, one of the best in terms of just clutch drives down the field, just hard work, moving down the field. That has to be up there as far as college football is concerned. And, I remember sitting there watching the game, and what was it, under 2 minutes when they were on the goal line, right?
Yeah, I mean, they were. That was also interesting to me that Iowa didn't just let them in. Talking to a couple friends,
yeah.
They mentioned that maybe you should have let them in. But yeah, go ahead with what you're going to say. Under 2 minutes.
No. Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was sitting there thinking, from a coaching standpoint, it becomes a matter of, do you have more confidence in your offense or your defense? Now Stanford had, Iowa had a heck of a defense, and they did make quite an effort to stop that Michigan State as they were knocking on the door. But, if I remember right, they were out of timeouts. It just, when it comes to playing the clock, you might have thought, and, now especially you think, now that they ended up losing the game, you would think, yeah, we should have. But at that time, should the coach have, quote unquote, let them score and given your offense a chance to go out there and win the game? It's, it's a game of if and buts, but ultimately I agree that Michigan State is the deserved spot to go on into the college football playoff. Now, a note before we go and talk about the college football playoff, this Saturday there's a fun matchup. It's Army and Navy, the two armed forces going at it. So that'll be a fun match. Both are good football teams. And, of course, we thank them and all who serve our country. We thank them for their service.
Yeah, that's just...
And we are grateful for their sacrifices.
I think it's great that that game gets such a spotlight because those kids are, there's not your average college students. They're going out there serving the country, and Navy really playing some good ball this year. They were in the top 25 for a lot of the year. They still are at 15. So that's good. Definitely good. I love all the ceremony and everything that goes into it and before the game. And it's really fun to see. It's fun to see what usually during that game they'll show, the players, and they'll give a little bio and they'll show what they're doing in the armed forces and then what they're planning to do afterwards. So love to see that, kind of sports and news and just culture coming together and really giving them a good spotlight.
Have you? Did you get the chance to see the Navy helmets that they're going to be wearing?
Not, but I would imagine they're pretty awesome.
Oh, they're sick. I mean, each helmet has its own, like battleship, basically. So that'll be cool. I mean, they're that was just awesome. You'll have to take a look at it because they're awesome. And are you ready for this? Ken Niumatalolo, the head coach of Navy. He's having a heck of a season. They're a fun team to watch. That should be definitely a fun game. Now, we'll jump ahead into the college football playoff. All right, just to update you on the rankings if you're not already aware. Clemson retained their number 1 spot. Alabama retained their number 2 spot. Michigan State jumps in there at number 3, and Oklahoma is down to number 4. So the matchups are set for New Year's Eve. Those games, I mean, those are going to be heck of a game. Those games are going to be heck of games, if that makes any sense.
Man, I am so glad that college football decided to implement the playoff system because we get not one or not two, but 3 amazing games, and that's gonna be fun to watch. I'm sitting here thinking about, the two matchups, Clemson, Oklahoma, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's a great game. That's definitely my favorite matchup of the two. And I'm like, hold on a second. Alabama versus Michigan State, that's fantastic, too.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah,
That's going to be fun.
Man, very much looking forward to that. That's going to be a good way to start the new year, should I say.
No, definitely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to those without a doubt. And, like you said, the college football playoff, it's not only does it make it more fun to watch, but it's also, for sure, it's a more fair way of doing things. You truly can find out which team is the best in the nation. So we'll look forward to that. We'll look forward to the bowl games that are coming up, and we'll plan on covering those bowl games next episode. They'll be more relevant then. Now, we mentioned this earlier, Garrett, and as we're wrapping up the show, let's jump in and let's talk about the Heisman candidates, the Heisman finalists, rather. Now, Garrett also already mentioned the two running backs, Alabama's Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey of Stanford, and then, of course, Deshaun Watson, the Clemson quarterback, who, Deshaun Watson is having a heck of a year, but, he's just kind of been, I don't know what the right term is. I think overshadowed isn't the right term because it has a kind of a negative connotation, because he has had a heck of a year, and he definitely should be considered. But when you look at the other two options, you have to say Derrick Henry or Christian McCaffrey, one of those two is going to win.
Yeah, and I think, overshadowed, again, definitely the right word for Watson. I think his main argument right now is the fact that he's got the undefeated team, but it'll be interesting. I think it is going to come down between McCaffrey and Henry. I'd like to give a shout-out to Oklahoma quarterback Baker Mayfield. It's interesting because not only was he one of the players that was thought to be maybe a Heisman finalist, another award he's up for is the Walk-On of the Year award. Let's just think about that. Yeah. Think about how possibly a person who is up for, or a person who is possibly up for the Heisman Award, also up for the Walk-On of the Year award, which I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's going to win that. I think that's...
Yeah, how does he not?
But man, McCaffrey or Henry, it's tough. McCaffrey really got some people thinking with that last game, considering that he had not just a rushing and receiving touchdown, but he also had a passing touchdown, because it's kind of like J.J. Watt catching touchdowns last season. He gets so many sacks, and then he catches a couple touchdowns just to prove his point. It'll be fun. It'll be fun to see. Honestly, I think, in the end, it's probably going to go to Henry just because he's been such a consensus favorite for the whole year. But, either way, good for McCaffrey for making this little late season run and kind of showing who he is and, making a name for himself. He's putting his name into NFL scouts' minds, whether he decides to, go for that. But it's definitely, he's really improved recently. Definitely shown that he's one of the top talents.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, who ends up winning it. Of course, I think we said this earlier, Christian McCaffrey breaking Barry Sanders' record for all-purpose yards in a season. He ended up with 3,496 total yards, 13 touchdowns total, and 2 thrown touchdown passes. That's pretty awesome. So he had the one in the USC game, and then he ended up throwing another one during the course of the season. But it'll be interesting to see who wins. I think that Derrick McHenry just Derrick Henry. I'm getting their names confused. I really shouldn't be getting their names confused, but he's not Derrick McHenry. He's Derrick Henry, and he's had a heck of a season.
Maybe they should just give it to McHenry and
just call it McHenry.
Split the Heisman into
split it right in half.
There you go. We got it all figured out.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's only fair. That sounds good to me. Wait, no, it doesn't. We're competitors.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. Get it together. Derrick Henry.
You played to win the Heisman.
You played. What a legendary quote. In the end, we'll see what happens. Derrick McHenry. He's. I seriously think I just called him Derrick McHenry again.
We just set it up. So.
We have. It's never going to get out of my mind now.
Henry. Just Henry.
Just Henry. All right. Final prediction for the Heisman.
My final prediction, definitely going to go to Derrick Henry. I think
right.
every year, we kind of try and push another person in to the talk, just to make it exciting for the media, but Derrick Henry for sure.
All right. I'm going to put out I'm going to say Christian McCaffrey. And we'll see what happens. I just think that because he broke Barry Sanders' record for all-purpose yards, that just seems like something that should immediately qualify him as the number one. But that's a personal opinion. And if he doesn't win it this year, who knows? He could win in the future if he sticks around at Stanford. Well, I think we're just about concluded with this episode, with this podcast. Garrett, any last words for the people?
I'm just excited. Especially love that Army-Navy game. I think everyone listening, make sure you tune in, to that game because that's special. That's something, beyond just sports. That's something I think any sports fan should really watch that just because of the magnitude of that game. Everything going on in the world, we kind of get caught up with it, but, essentially it comes back down to, just core things, and one of the core things of this country is freedom, and those kids out there, they're playing football, but those are the kids that are helping protect that freedom in the future for us, so that's an important game to watch and give them some recognition. Yeah,
absolutely, and again, thank you to all who have served the country. We are grateful for your service. This has been the BNO Sports Show. This has been episode 2 of our podcast, the football edition. We hope you enjoyed. Our Twitter handle, again, is @BO Sports Show. Make sure to check out our blog and our Twitter. We, again, hope you enjoyed. Thank you for listening. Have a good day, and we'll see you later.